everyone. My name is Jen. Welcome to Hope Hub. Hope Hub is a community for widows to find connection with each other, resources, and to have conversation with really incredible other widows and experts who can help you through your journey. I am really excited. I've had this great partnership with Kelci, and really excited to welcome her to our conversation. And so we are going to chat for about 20 minutes, and then um, Ashley, who's one of our members and also a big Kelsey fan, just
Mhm.
texted me that she's actually listening. And she'll come back on, in a little bit when we have the discussion piece of it. So, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Kelsey is a nurse, a certified grief coach, life coach, and you founded an incredible organization that helps people support grief that you can tell us more about rather than me reading from the internet. Why don't I'll let you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do, and then we're going to talk about feelings today,
Yeah.
which is not an easy one.
I mean, I bring me all the feelings. Bring all
Yeah,
the feelings. I welcome them all. Um,
I don't, I'm not good at them. Um,
it doesn't mean that I like them all, but I do
sure,
welcome them all.
sure.
Um, Thanks for having me be on here, Jen. It's an honor. And like you said, I'm also a widow. My husband Colin passed away at the age of 40 after a 18-month battle with leukemia. And he was, um, my grief journey actually started before he was diagnosed. 4 months before he was diagnosed with leukemia, we have four sons. And 4 months before he was diagnosed, our two oldest sons were in a motor vehicle accident. One of my sons was severely injured, had multiple surgeries, and to help with broken bones and the trauma that he endured in that accident. And my other son that was in the accident had a head injury. And as a result of that head injury, we discovered that he had a brain tumor. And so all this happened. He had immediate brain surgery. My other son was rushed into surgery, and all this happened. And it was a whirlwind. And then 4 months after that, my husband was diagnosed with leukemia. So that was when my grief journey started. And here I am now, 5.5 years later. And I didn't know then that I would be able to be as happy and as um, capable and confident as I am now. Then I didn't believe it.
Right.
But so I just anybody that's listening and that's in the thick of it and is just like feels like I just don't know how I'm going to do it, and I just don't, I just don't have see any hope. And I love Hope Hub because that's the crux of it. Is we have to hold on to that hope, and that hope, even if we can't see a way, that hope allows us to continue forward even when we feel like we just don't have it in us to take another step. That hope gives us the ability to take one more step. So that's me. I founded my company Rise with Grief, and I help others who are bereaved, not just widows. I do, of course, work with a lot of widows, but I work with anybody that's lost a loved one, to really take their hand and guide them and give them the tools and the things that are necessary to be able to know, okay, how do I wrap my hands around this grief? What do I do now? You know, our wounds are most likely not our fault, but our what we do and how we react, that is our responsibility. And so I know how overwhelming um, losing a spouse is. And I provide for other grievers what I really needed, which was someone to take my hand and say, okay, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to show you all the things, how you process emotions, how you accept the feelings and welcome them.
Mm,
Doesn't mean that you
right,
love them, doesn't mean
right,
that you're
right.
happy they're there, but we don't run from them. We allow them to be there. And through doing this work, it has really, really helped me
Mm,
to process and heal because it's given, like you, it's given a purpose to your pain. And I wish that I didn't meet so many wonderful people the way that I meet them, because I
I
meet them
know.
this way because they've lost someone as well. But I really is an honor and something that I do not take for granted. It's something that I really, really treat as sacred. And it's something that I really do not take for granted, that people trust me in their worst time of their lives to help guide them through. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. And I feel like the work that we do complements each other because I'm very open and honest. I am not a coach or a
Yes.
therapist. I'm a community builder. And so while
Yes.
you are, there to help, you know, women, kind of hold their hand and deal with the different things, I'm there to provide a community of people who also are going through the same thing so that they don't feel
Hmm.
like they're alone.
Yes. Yes. And both
Um,
things are so important.
so
It's so
important.
important to have that community, and it's so important to have the tools and have, know how to really, okay, this, my life burned to the ground. Now, how do I move forward?
Right, right, definitely. So my first question related to your opening is how are your sons?
My sons are all currently healthy. My son that had the brain tumor, he, of course, had surgery and treatment. It was benign, thankfully, but he still had to have
Yeah.
major brain surgery, and he had lots of treatment. And he just a few months ago had his 5 year clearance. So
Hey, Chels.
he is now considered cured.
Yeah.
So we're so happy about that. My other son that was in the accident, he's great. He's thriving. And my other two younger ones, they're just all such resilient, amazing kids. Doesn't mean that they don't have hard days. Doesn't mean that they don't miss their dad. They absolutely do. But we live big and full in honor of him. And I promised my husband the day that he died, it was hours before he died, I promised him that he could no longer speak or communicate. But I knew he could hear me. And I promised him that I would not let his death make us live small. I would not let his death be basically the death of us. And in that moment, I didn't know how I was going to keep that promise. I was like, I
Right.
promise you this. And in my head, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to keep this from this, but I knew he needed to hear it. I also needed to hear it from myself. And yeah, my kids are doing great.
Good. Good. Um, So, as I mentioned in the beginning, I wanted to really have a conversation about feelings or emotions. And I know you
Mhm.
do a lot of work with these and, what happens, what are the most common feelings that you have? What happens when they come up? And the reason, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer kind of question when you say what are the most common feelings, and people think, sadness and anger and
Yes.
guilt and all the things. But I ask it because I have a lot of widows who will come to me and they'll say, I just feel so angry. And I'll
Mhm.
say, yeah, me too. And same with everyone else. And they'll often respond, oh, really? And
Mhm.
so I think it's really helpful to kind of normalize these feelings so that people don't feel like they're crazy. Like that's really what it comes down to is I have, again, a lot of women who are like, other people feel this way too. And
Mhm.
so, both from a being a widow, and I too agree 100% that it stinks that we meet these amazing, brave women
Mhm.
because of this situation. But, as a widow, but also as a coach, as a grief coach, what are some of like the big feelings that suck the life out of us?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that's the
grief is,
reality of what feelings do, at least in my
uh,
perspective. Like
yeah.
they
So
really do exhaust you.
absolutely, absolutely. Grief isn't just one emotion. It's just not just sadness. It's not just the longing. It's a whole landscape of
Mhm.
emotions, and it's a whole landscape of emotions within one given day. And
Right.
so, like, I can feel so much love for my husband and deep longing and gratitude for the life we had. And then at the same time, or in the next moment, I can feel so much anger that he's gone, and anger that my boys have to, grow up without a dad, and that I have to do this alone. And, the loneliness, there's so much, and sometimes guilt, regret. There's so much. People
Mhm.
think grief is just sadness, but it's actually a really complex emotional experience. And I actually talk about this in my book that I wrote. I talk about the emotions of grief and anger and acceptance all at the same time. And the truth is that they don't come in a neat order, and
Mhm.
they often exist at the same time. You can have conflicting emotions at the same time, and you can have grief in one hand and devastation in one hand, and so much love and gratitude in the other hand. And they don't cancel each other out. And that's something that I think happens a lot of times in grief is to grievers, we get smothered with toxic positivity, just like
Mhm.
smothered in, well, at least you had the love like that. I've never had
Right.
that kind
Oh,
of love. Or he's not, at least he's not, suffering anymore. Or, just like, so there's so much. You guys all know what they are.
yeah.
And it's just like, it feels very invalidating to our feelings and our experience. And so what I want the widows to hear is that no matter what you feel, of course you feel that way.
Right.
Because no matter what you think, of course you think that.
Yeah.
There's so much that is not understood about grief, especially grief from loss of a spouse. When
Right.
we lose a spouse, it touches every single part of our life, changes the way we eat, changes the way we spend our time, the way we shop. I mean, everything. And unless you've experienced that, you really don't get it.
Right.
And that's why community, like what you have built, Jen, is so important, because just to have that validation and that witness of, I'm not alone, I'm not going crazy, like other
Right.
people are
Right.
experiencing this too, is just being able to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So let me back up a little bit. So to what we need to do with those feelings is we need to acknowledge them. Okay. And we can acknowledge them. And then we see that we're not going crazy. We don't fight them. We're like, oh, okay, this is normal. And then we can say, of course, I feel this way. Of course, this hurts. Of course, I'm angry. Of course, I feel guilty, or whatever it is. And that simple acknowledgement, it takes away a lot of the internal struggle. The internal struggle, when we resist, when we struggle with it, we try to change it, necessary suffering. That is something that we can change. We can't change the pain, but we
Right.
can drop the struggle, which will take care of some of the suffering.
Yeah, and that's, I think, just, saying some of those things and the acknowledgement. I know there's so many people, and I've been there too, who think this is never going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
is, I am going to feel this miserable,
Mm-hmm.
broken, unhappy for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
And, I think that, what the tools that you're able to teach are allow us to kind of get out of that frame of
absolutely.
mind. But I like, I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking it's probably okay on one hand to think, you know what, I am going to feel pain for the rest of my life because you are. You're acknowledging it. It's just part of how it is. But that pain can be counteracted with, as you said, and I say this all the time to people too, is you can have two feelings at once because
Yes.
on the other side of pain can be joy. And
Hmm.
people are like, what?
Yes. Yeah, people don't understand that you can have, we love to think in an either or way, a
Mhm.
black or white way, but grief is very much both and.
Mhm.
It's not either I'm okay or I'm not okay. It's not either I'm moving forward or I'm stuck. It's I can miss my husband deeply and still laugh with my kids.
Yeah.
I can feel grateful for the parts of my life that that I love and still wish he were here.
Right.
It's that and when we can allow two emotions to exist at the same time, it's so freeing.
Yeah.
And that's when we can stop judging ourselves for how we're feeling. We can acknowledge and we can allow and stop resisting.
Hmm. Yeah,
Many, many widows feel guilty when moments of joy start to show up again, and they
of
think it
course.
means they're leaving their husband behind, or they're betraying them somehow, or it means that they don't miss them, or they don't love them as much. And that's not what's happening at all. Joy does not replace grief. Joy and grief gets braided into your life, and every joyful moment has a little bit of grief there. And what happens is the joy, it simply expands the
Mhm.
space in our life where both the joy and the pain and the grief can coexist. And you said, and I think we all probably think this in the beginning, or even for many years, will this pain ever go away? And you know grief changes, but it doesn't disappear.
Mm.
And the reason it doesn't disappear is because the grief is there because the love is there.
Right.
And as long as the love is going to be there, which is going to be there, and it's for the rest of our life, um, then that grief is going to be there. But what does change is the intensity. In the
Right.
beginning, it can feel like the pain is so overwhelming and it's everywhere all the time and it's suffocating.
Hmm.
Um, but over time, as you learn to process and to allow, the waves become less constant and you begin to have more space in your life again. But the love stays, the grace stays, and life slowly starts to grow around all of it.
Right.
And you notice you're laughing again or feeling moments of peace and joy again. And it doesn't mean you've left them behind. It just means that your heart is learning to carry both.
Right. And I know in my experience too is that it's also, it's not, the pain may not be as constant, but it's a little bit like a roller coaster. In fact, somebody
100%.
when Jack first died, somebody taught me the term grief bombs, which I
Hmm.
loved. And it's like those
Yeah.
moments. And I was just sharing with someone I shared on Hope Up this morning because I'm a completely open book and I will tell anybody, how I'm feeling at every given moment.
Mm.
It's to a fault sometimes, but I wrote this morning on there, like Friday night, I just, and for me it'll be almost 2 years. And so and most of the time, I'm doing okay. I love my work. I have great friends. I have an amazing daughter, but I just like fell off the wagon on Friday night. And it was like, I felt like a little kid. I was like having a temper tantrum, like, why isn't he here? And I talk about temper. I like took the urn with his ashes and I put a picture behind it and I created this whole thing next to my, I was a little bit psychotic. Um, but, I got through it. And,
Yeah.
here I am today. And, I have a little bit of the aftermath of it. It's almost like a hangover in a way.
Hmm. Yep. I
But
call it a grief. I call it a grief hangover.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
it's
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 a real
it's
thing.
it's
It's a real thing. Yeah.
there you go. That's exactly how I'm feeling today. And again, I don't feel like that always, but it is a little bit like a roller coaster, and you never kind of know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And so to your point, you're like, I'm almost 2 years in and I had this big grief bomb. The bombs, they get further and further between, but when they come, holy cow, they are intense.
Hmm.
They are just as intense. And so the difference is like for me now, they don't last as long. And they're when they come, they're just as intense, but I know how to handle them. I know what to do when they come. So they don't last as long, but they are, I mean, they will knock me flat on my back. And you said, I was a little bit psychotic, but no, you're not. You are a grieving widow. You are a grieving wife who has lost her husband, and you're responding to that grief and trauma that's coming up in that moment. So, no, you're not being psychotic. You are trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense to you.
Exactly, exactly. You mentioned, it can knock you on your back and all of this, and we've said this a couple times throughout this conversation, but one of the common things I hear too, and I feel it, and I'm sure you still feel it even, is the exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I talk a lot about there's two sides to widowhood. There's the widow chores, is what I learned that from a amazing woman. Her name is Kelly Lynn. She's a comedian, and she lost her husband, and she is one of the funniest people I know, but and is able to turn like this really horrible topic into something that quite frankly you can laugh at about times. So
I
she
love
calls it
it.
the chores.
I
And
love it.
that's the paying the bills and the taking the garbage out and being the only one at home to do the dishes and the
Yes.
laundry and
Hmm.
like all the stuff when you're like, I
Yes.
can't do this all by myself. And there's
Hmm.
that exhaustion. And then there's the emotional exhaustion too.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so just wondering if you have any tools as we call them or tips or tricks
Yeah.
or for the widow who's just like, I can't do this anymore. I am so burnt out.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, we have the widow chores because we have our regular responsibilities, and then we have to absorb our husbands as well. And so, first of all, you have to give yourself some slack.
Yeah.
You cannot possibly take on and absorb all of the responsibility and everything of another person, grieving or not.
Right, right.
So you have to separate out your things, and you have to really look at them and be like, okay, what is essential that I have to do that nobody else can do? What are things that I can ask family and friends to help with? And what are things that I can hire out? Now, I understand that not everybody, can hire out things because I mean, I go to the grocery store and I'm like, oh my gosh, like my bill is
This
$200 more
costs
for the
this.
same thing. Yes, right, right. So, I mean, I get it, but you also have to look and prioritize what are some things that I can let go? Like, what are things that I don't have to hold on to? Because there is that physical exhaustion that's just like, okay, we have to sort this out. Now, on top of that, as you said, is there's that deep emotional that can cause also physical fatigue
Mhm.
because your brain is processing loss. Your nervous system has gone through trauma and your body is holding a lot of emotion. And then, as we said, at the same time, keeps asking things of you. And
Mhm.
so there are days where even just the tiniest of decisions feel overwhelming. And when we are overwhelmed, what do? We do nothing. We spin. We
Mhm.
spin and we actually make no forward movement. So what I remind widows and myself at times
Yeah.
is that nothing has gone wrong. Number one, if you feel exhausted, you're not lazy. You're not like nothing's wrong with you. Like, please do not punch yourself in the face while you're down.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I should be doing this. I have all these things and I'm just sitting here scrolling Instagram. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with me? I'm so lazy. Why can't I get it together? Please don't punch yourself in the face when you're down. Your system is responding to loss. One of the most helpful things we can do is to lower our expectations we have for ourselves for a while. That doesn't mean that we give ourselves permission to lay in bed every single day and like never do anything. But some days the win and the goal of the day is simply getting out of bed or taking a walk or making dinner or just getting through the day. Healing happens slowly and energy does come back, but it happens gradually as our nervous system settles. The other thing that we need to do when we feel overwhelmed, like I said, we'll sit in indecision, we'll spin and we'll just worry and we'll think, and our brain will think that that is being productive when we're like constantly thinking about, oh my gosh, I need to do this, this, and this, but we're not actually doing it. That number one sucks a lot of energy, just sitting there
Mhm.
worrying.
Right.
When we're overwhelmed, we freeze. So what we need to do is we need to break it down to something, to a bite-sized piece that is something that is digestible. So if you have a task, let's say the task is dinner. I have to make dinner. Oh my goodness, like I just fed these kids. Why do I have to feed them again? Am I the only one that thinks this? Like I just fed you.
Right.
You're hungry again? I'm so tired. So,
Exactly.
well, so let's just take making dinner, for example. Then you cut it in half. Okay. Like, what is the steps for making dinner? Oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. Okay, let's cut that in half. That's too overwhelming. Cut that in half again. And just keep cutting in half until it's something that's so bite-sized. Like, okay, I can handle getting to the stove and pulling out a pan and boiling water. Okay, then what's
Mhm.
the next step after that? And just focus on the next step, and then we'll be making some forward movement, some forward
Right.
progress. And but yeah, so I mean, I kind of like veered off of your thing of exhaustion, but I mean, those are the things. Number one, giving yourself a lot of grace and compassion in that, and also figuring out what you can allow people to help you with, and lower our expectations for ourselves for a while, and also just breaking it down into
Yeah.
something that is like, okay, I can handle that,
Right.
so it's not so big and overwhelming.
Right. And I don't want to, I know we don't have a ton of time, but I do want to acknowledge something that you've said that is, I think, a really scary word to people, and that's help.
Mm,
I feel really lucky that I was always taught that asking for help is a strength versus a weakness. And so I personally, don't have a problem with it, but I think a lot of people are, especially women, are this
mm,
kind of, I am woman, hear me roar. Like, I don't need any help. I can
mm,
do this all on my own. And I say to people, maybe in your past life you could, but when you lose your partner, like it's impossible to do this alone.
yeah,
Whether
a
you
a
have
hundred
kids
percent.
or not, whether they died suddenly or it was a longer term illness, like it
Mm,
doesn't, asking for help.
yes.
And I second that. And I'd love to hear what, with you have to ask it just saying, can you help me, or expecting other people to help you in ways that you need it doesn't work. Like you have to think about exactly what it is that you need help with. And I tell this story all the time. I did my first support group that I did. There was a woman, her name was Pam, and her and her husband used to garden together and like trim the hedges. And it was something that they did together. And this group was in May. So, it was warm out and what have you. And she just was like, I can't do it. My everything's overgrown, everything needs to be, and I just can't do it. And, we said, and it goes back to something else you said, can you hire somebody to do it? And she said, I'm not in a financial, position where I can hire
Yeah.
somebody. And I can't remember who it was. Somebody said, well, it's almost summer. There's a lot of like high school kids that are going to be, home, college kids home for the summer, high school kids that are looking for jobs. Like, why don't you just look around your neighborhood and find somebody that you could, pay a little bit
Mm,
less that could come and help you? And she
mhm,
came back the next week, a different woman. I mean, we laugh about it
mm.
now and we still laugh, it was like, oh my God, I asked this boy down the street if he could help me trim the hedges. He did, and I feel like a new person. And so I
Yeah.
use that example a lot of like the freedom that asking for help gives you, but also the specificity of it. Like, I need my hedges
Yes.
trimmed. Okay, great.
Yes.
Somebody can do that. That's an easy ask
Right.
versus like, I need my life's falling apart and I need help. That's a
Yes.
big,
Right.
confusing ask.
Right. Well, and in grief and in widowhood, those small, things that wouldn't make us feel like, oh my gosh, like my life is falling apart. I can't handle this. Those things that wouldn't have done that to us before when our husband was here, all of a sudden, like, the car breaks down, and this is a personal experience. Okay. My car battery died. And that's not a big deal. Like, you just jump it and then go get a new battery. Like our battery died and my dishwasher broke at the same time. And I was like, oh my gosh, everything's great. Like nothing's working. Like, I
Yeah.
just like totally catastrophized it and just like dramatized it. And it really felt that way. But yes, we are oftentimes afraid to ask for help because we don't want to be a burden or,
Mhm.
do all those things. But most people want to help. They just don't always know how. And so when we ask, we're giving them a way to show up for us. And I
Right.
know that that's kind of a generalization. Not every single person has people they can ask for help. But I mean, generally speaking, there are people that want to help us and that love us, and they're just waiting for us to tell them how. They just don't know. And so even if we ask someone for help and they can't help us per se, don't be afraid to get creative. Like if
Yeah.
there's and if it means that you have to hire it out and you don't have the budget, okay, well, let's see where we can cut out. Are we buying lunch at work every day? Can we maybe take our lunch for the month? You know what I mean? Like, don't be afraid to get creative. Yes, it sucks that we have to change. We have
Mhm.
to change our
Well,
budget. We have to
that's
change our
really
life. We
what
have to
it,
like sucks. Yes, a hundred
yeah.
percent. But like it also sucks to be spinning and worrying about the hedges. So both things are hard.
Right.
Choose your hard. Which one
Right.
is
I
harder?
like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, choose your heart. That's a really good way to because the spinning and the stress, it's all like it's a big giant circle.
Mhm.
It's like, the chores are out of control, your emotions out of control, you're exhausted, and then you can't think about what it's kind of this circle. And so yes, I am a big I talk about this asking for help a lot, and you made a really good point. Some people are like, well, I don't have anybody, I don't have family, I don't have friends that live nearby. Strangers want to help too.
Yeah. Ask your
And your
neighbor. Go
next
knock
door
on your neighbor's
neighbor, who
door.
you may have never spoken to in the 20 years that you lived in your
Yeah.
house, if
Right.
you went and knocked on your door and said, I need help putting out my mailbox. That's something I did yesterday. Literally, got smacked down with the snowplow a couple weeks ago, and it's been laying on the ground. And so, people they do want to help. I find it. I don't think I've ever heard a story where someone says
Right.
no, or but they might say I can't do that, but I know somebody who can. Those kind of
Yes.
situations.
Yes.
But it's scary.
Of
It's so
course. Of
scary,
course
and
it is.
you totally hit the nail on the head. You have to change who you are because when your partner or your spouse dies, like you are never going to be the same. I hate to break it to you.
Mhm.
Um,
No.
but it doesn't mean that you can't. I mean, and I feel really lucky, and it sounds like you've had this experience too. You can actually be a little bit of a better version of yourself. Um,
Yes. Yeah. There's a thing called post-traumatic growth. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, Jen. In the beginning, I was very well aware of post-traumatic growth. And I was like,
yeah.
no, I'm not even going to consider like I don't even tell me anything like that because like I no. Like this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me and there's no way I'm going to be better from it. Like nope, I was like having a tantrum.
Hmm.
Eventually I obviously came around, but when you think about your heroes in your life, you think about the people you look up to, you think about the people that you maybe not even know, but they could be acquaintances, and you're like, that person's so inspiring, or that person's just amazing. Those people have not had everything
Right.
easy and lovely and sunshine and rainbows. Those people have crawled through the mud,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that's why they're amazing.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah, we
why.
can we can be better from this. And
Yeah.
if you are listening to this and you're like, I don't want to be better, totally get it. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to be there right now. It's
Absolutely.
okay. It's okay. I was the same way.
Absolutely not. I mean, I think, in fact, if you're listening and half of what you're hearing, you're saying, I don't want to, that's okay too.
Yeah.
I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to imagine the pain. It's all, um, it's a process and it's okay.
Yeah.
I remember
Absolutely.
I felt so proud of myself, after the first year, I was like, I've done amazing things. Like I've come so far. I've been able to manage all this stuff. And then I took a couple of steps backwards and I beat myself up over it. I was like, I was doing so good and now I'm not. And and that's to me the kind of roller coaster piece of it too, is that
Yes.
it's
Hmm.
not all linear, it's not
No.
all up, there are
And you're
cliffs
not
to
going
fall off
backwards.
and you're
You're
not going back.
absolutely not. I
Right.
know it feels that way, but you're not. There's new layers of grief that are coming up in your process. It's all part of the process. It's all part of the journey. And you are not, I promise you, you are not regressing in your grief. You're not going backwards. That's not actually a thing.
Yeah. Um, please tell us how people can find you, what you have that's new going on or not new, but you're still really passionate about, so that we can continue this conversation with you because I
Yeah,
really love it.
absolutely. First, I want to say, Jen, thank you for this platform that you've created. I mean, I just think it's so important for widows to be able to connect with each other um, in a safe space. There's no substitute for being able to feel like you're truly being seen by another person who understands without you having to explain. And so
Mhm.
I just really commend you for creating this space because I just think it's fantastic, and I'll continue to spread the word.
Thank you.
So hopefully you'll continue to build your community here. I can be found, my website is risewithgrief.com. Again, my name is Kelci Jager. You can find me on social media, on Instagram. I'm at Rise with Grief. That's my link or my name at Rise with Grief. On Facebook, I'm Kelci Jager. I also have a book, A Million Miracles, and the one that never came, and that can be found on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the places online. And um, my passion is the work that I do, coaching my clients one on one, and really, my program, um, we spend an hour every week, and it's just the two of us. And I really meet my clients where they are and where they are in their journey and their experience. And I teach them how to make space for the grief, how to regulate the nervous system so that the grief doesn't control us, and the nervous system can not freak out like we're being chased by a crazy person in the woods with a knife every time an uncomfortable emotion comes up. And I teach them how to um how to do some mind management, and then how to really, where do I want to go from here? I have this horrible thing that happened that I was not expecting, that I didn't want. And now where do I go? What now? That was me. I was like, I don't, I still have another 40, 50, maybe 60 years left to live. Like,
Mhm.
what now? Everything in the future included my husband. Every hope, goal, dream, everything included him. And I was just like, I don't know who I am now without him. I don't know what I want. I don't know how to do this. And so that's the work I do, is I teach them, okay, let's first learn how to make space for the grief, how to accept. Acceptance doesn't mean that we're okay with, but how
Mhm.
we don't judge, we don't push away, we don't resist, how we allow everything to be. And then what do we do from here? So that's really the work that I do. If you're interested in learning how to work with me, you can go to my website, risewithgrief.com. My programs are outlined on there, the pricing, everything, breakdown. And you can also book a free 30-minute introductory call with me on there, and to see if we're a good fit. And yeah, I love what I do. It's like
No.
I said, it's an honor.
It is. It really is. It really is an honor. And you are amazing. All of Kelsey's information is also on Hope Hub in the resource section. And other places, we'll be posting this in the library if you missed it. Thank you so much for your partnership, your support, and all of your wisdom. It's been
Absolutely.
it's been my honor to have this conversation, and we will talk soon.